Hey everybody, with the recent addition of individual missions, we kind of had an idea that things would go very badly wrong when puppies got their hands on them. However, we kind of just didn't realise how bad it was going to be, and in fact it's got to the point where even if you finished your missions, or you don't want to participate in them, your game is going to be fucked anyway by puppies who are so desperate to get theirs done they will happily throw matches like they are absolutely nothing. This was one of those matches. So I've ended up on Stalingrad in my Centurion. At this point I was trying to set things on fire, and being a 5-skill crew with Deadeye trained on the gunner, I figured my Centurion would probably be the best tank for that, except possibly my Wheezy 120, which I didn't really want to play at that time, because the Cent is just a more flexible tank. The Wheezy's gun depression can be a bit of a problem. Actually, it turns out that I did finally complete the mission in the bat chat. I had a lot of trouble finishing it. In anything else, I just could not get a fire, despite getting them quite often normally. But of course, even though I was trying to set people on fire, I was also still trying to win and do damage, because I didn't want to fuck up my scent stats, and also, you know, I'm just not a complete shitlord. So I've been playing fairly cautiously so far. Usually I try not to cross in front of teammates' guns, but here it just kind of happened. I leave the other scent to snipe away at the Type 61's cupola for a moment while I come over here to see if I can get a shot through any of these windows. Unfortunately not, and the other scent's pushing up, so I decide I will join him as soon as I realise I have no shots from this position. Type 61 isn't paying attention to me, and I can see that there's a gap in the rubble pile I can hit it through, which I do, and of course that gets his attention. Thankfully, the mix of him being a bad shot and the Type 61 having absolutely terrible gun handling means I'm able to knock off most of his hit points before he gets a single hit on me, and then I ran him for a bit of damage and put in the finisher. Luckily, the enemy scent was not paying enough attention, apparently. He was in a position where he could have influenced that fight and taken me out of it, but he didn't. He didn't actually react to my presence at all until his buddy was already dead. So at this point, I'm basically just side-scraping off a pile of rubble and trying to get some decent hits into him from the front. Now, I'd obviously prefer to have shot him in the side or rear, trying to set him on fire, but at this point, I would just rather get him off the field than worry about getting my mission done. As you can see, my scent crew does actually have Eagle Eye on the commander. Once you get to 5 skills, you kind of run out of useful things to train. But with that said, Eagle Eye is actually useful when you want to know whether you're likely to burn somebody or rack them or not. It can also help tell you if somebody's gun's broken, so you can better weigh up the risk and reward of charging past them. Got a little help from the RU-251 there, and as the enemy scent goes to chase him, the RU finishes him off. Take a quick snapshot at the ST1, unfortunately it doesn't connect. I was thinking about backing out and getting another shot in there, but of course the E5's approach put that thought right out of my head. I didn't want to play face to face with an E5, especially after losing most of my hit points. Well, perhaps not most, but about half of them. And so while the E5 was occupied fighting RM-103, I decided to push down the street parallel to him, and maybe hook in around the corner once I know he's distracted and he's fired his gun. I roll out, his gun goes off, and that's my cue. Unfortunately, the scent does have a very long reload, and it is a very big target, so I'm not going to be able to roll up alongside him and just tear him apart like a T62 or a 430 or anything would. But the scent does hit hard, and he's occupied by something else, which gives me some leverage here, and I'm able to knock out a good chunk of his hit points before he can get a shot back into me. It also helps that his shot tracks me.
Crack fixed. Let's move. Enemy armor is hit. Permission to engage.
this point, I'm just using auto-aim to keep my gun on him. I unlock him as soon as I'm ready to actually fire, and put a round straight through his engine. Of course, no fire. Not that it matters, he's dead anyway. At this point, I realized that we needed the reset. The only person near enough was the Lorraine. The T-62 intercepts me. I was hoping for a decent ram here to knock off most of his hit points, but unfortunately I just didn't hit hard enough thanks to him turning and also me crossing the trench. And I fuck up here and allow him to shoot me in the hole. One more shot into him, he would have been dead, but mistakes are mistakes, and the T-57 was rolling up on me anyway. I probably would have died regardless. And so, at this point, the Lorraine takes out the 42021 cap, and our own E5 is on the enemy cap. I thought we might actually be in with a chance. The E5 could dispatch the T-62 in a single shot. You know, he did get reset there, but surely he could handle this. Takes out the 62, but the ST1 gets a big hit into the side of his turret while he's not paying attention, or rather into the side of his hull while he's not paying attention. The 261 finishes him, and now it's just the Lorraine and the Batchat Artie left. And this is where it all goes to shit. This is still very much a winnable game. The ST1 has got about 1400 health, which a Lorraine could finish in a single clip, assuming he doesn't miss or bounce. And the T-57 is still full health, but T-57s don't really have much for armor. Unfortunately, our Lorraine has a mission to complete. And to complete his mission, well, actually not even to complete his mission, but to get the extra honors credit bonus for his mission, which is such a paltry sum it really doesn't even bear. It's not worth getting, basically. He decides he's going to hide, because he needs to survive to get it. Well, needs, in his mind. Why he figured he would just sit there and hide, I'm not sure. The enemy still have Artie and 2 heavy tanks in play. And if they were going to cap out, surely they would have done it by now. For a moment, it looks like the Lorraine is actually going to fight, realizing that he is outnumbered and inevitably one of the enemy will come looking for him. But of course, the T-57 is very close to our base, the ST-1 is surely heading there. And so here it comes. One on cap. Even if the Lorraine turned around now, he'd be kind of pushing his luck. The Artie takes a blind shot, doesn't hit. And the Lorraine is heading for the enemy cap. I don't know if he figured he was going to deal with the ST-1 first and just didn't stop to think, hey, maybe it's moved, or if he just wanted to continue avoiding getting shot. But by the time he gets to the enemy cap, there's less than a minute left on the cap timer, and there's still an enemy tank and an enemy Artie unaccounted for, and there we go. They now have 2 in cap, 20 seconds on the timer, 10 seconds on the timer with all 3 of them in cap. Game's done, there's nothing that can save it now, unless the Bat gets a miracle reset in, which he of course did not. One of them drove off to come finish the Lorraine so he wouldn't get his fucking survival bonus, but it was too late, and the guy's teammates decided they would sit on cap. No doubt one of them had a mission to complete that required capping. And so, because our Lorraine, who did not a grand amount in the match, decided he needed to get his special snowflake bonus for completing his mission. He could have completed it without surviving, but he decided he needed the extra survival bonus. Because he figured he needed that more than we needed to win, an easily winnable game was completely thrown out the window. And now every time I see that guy, I'm going to think, wow, it's that shitter again. That guy who throws his team under the bus so he can get his missions done. And, you know, if I happen to see him in a situation where he needs somebody to bail him out, maybe I won't bother, knowing that he wouldn't do the same for me. And this is a big problem. It's one thing to kind of try and play for self-preservation in the game. You kind of have to if you know what you're doing, because inevitably the shitters will die around you and they need somebody to carry them. But it's another thing entirely to just deliberately lose a game that there's even the vaguest chance of winning. I mean, even if I'm in a match where I know that I'm not going to be able to carry it, it's just too much for me, I'll still try, because sometimes you just get the miracle reset, or the miracle carry, and you pull it out. And even if you don't, at least you put in the effort, and it benefits everyone. You get more XP, your team gets a little bit more XP, everyone has a more enjoyable match, and you can come away from the game knowing you aren't a complete shitter. But in this case, the missions have made everyone even more selfish than they already were, and so people are quite merrily throwing each other out to the wolves just so they can complete their missions. I mean, I'll be dead honest, I've been doing it somewhat, but not to the extent of that. Not to the extent where I could have won the game and I just decided, nope, fuck this, I'm going to get 30,000 extra credits instead. As if I couldn't get that much in a single match in any tank I own. But such is life in World of Tanks, and honestly, I doubt things are going to improve as these missions go on. It's probably just going to get worse. So I'm conflicted. On the one hand, the actual choices of mission objective are really stupid. It's like they were chosen by somebody who doesn't even play the game. For example, what kind of fucking objective is set an enemy tank on fire? You can't control that. Even if you know where to aim, and you have a crew with Deadeye, and you are perfectly accurate, there's still a pretty decent sized chunk of RNG involved in that. And then you have the ARTI missions, where you have to hit 2 enemies in a single shot. You have to own a high tier ARTI to do that. You can't do it with a low tier ARTI. The highest tier ARTI I own is the FV304 or tier 6. And you can't splash people with it. It doesn't have splash. You basically hit them directly, or maybe you miss them by about 6 inches and do 1 point of damage to their tracks. You can't hit multiple people with an FV304. So the ARTI missions kind of necessitate having a tier 7 or up ARTI. You can't do it in anything less. But then to actually have the mission to hit multiple people at once, 2 people at once is one thing. To actually hit and damage 3 or 4 tanks in close proximity, I believe it's 3 tanks at the same time with 1 shell, for the T-28 concept mission, which is... because the missions escalate, basically. May as well segue into this now. The missions escalate between each vehicle. So, whereas for the Stug 4 you might have a mission, kill 2 enemy tank destroyers and a medium tank, it's 3 enemy tank destroyers and a medium tank for the next one. Or, instead of set a tank on fire, it's set a tank that's a tier above you on fire. Stuff like that. It's just, it escalates each time. Sorry, not good with words at the moment. And so you end up with this ridiculous scenario where you have to pull off these kinds of things, which are basically pure luck, and for some people may not happen in thousands of games. I mean, if you want a good example of pure luck, look at my first pools medal. It took me 13,000 matches to get a pools medal. Some people got a pools medal in their first 2,000 or 3,000. It's just luck. You can't center mission objectives around luck. It's fucking stupid. It's frustrating for good players who can't get it because they just aren't lucky. And it gives what should be, by Wargaming's own admission, own logic, what should be exclusive rewards to people that haven't actually done anything to earn them beyond be lucky with RNG. It's absurd. And so with these stupid objectives mixed with just the absolute shittery it induces in pubbies. If you give a puppy an objective to spot X amount of enemy tanks, he's not going to passive scout them from a bush, he's just going to charge straight into their spawn. If you give a puppy an objective to tank X amount of damage, he's not going to do it by playing smart, he's just going to drive straight into the enemy team in a heavy tank. Like, if you give puppies stupid objectives, they will do them in stupid ways. They will deliberately try and game the system, so they will have to put in the least amount of effort and time possible to get the objective done. Which means instead of actually playing seriously, they're just going to throw their tanks away over and over and over again, queuing up one tank after another, suiciding. If they don't get the mission, right back out, do another one. That's how it works, and that's why the game at the moment is so fucked up, because everyone is trying to do that. So on the one hand, it's shit because it just fucks the game up that badly. But on the other hand, I do like the idea of a lot of the things being given away. The new crew members, that's a nice feature to add. Inevitably, I'm sure there'll be an anime reskin pack and voice pack within about 2 weeks, if that. But it's a nice feature, and it does commemorate a historical aspect of World War II, particularly on the Soviet side, that not many people know about. And then, of course, the tanks are pretty nice. I mean, I don't personally care for the T-28 concept, but I'm always happy to have more Stugs. I would love the T-55, and the 260 looks like a lot of fun. So, I'm quite happy to get that. And I think it's a big improvement over the Clan Wars reward tanks, where you could only get them if you were in a clan, were active in Clan Wars, and your clan knew how to game the system. Because all the campaigns in all the Clan Wars reward tank campaign things, everyone was gaming it. Like, they may not have been gaming it in the strictest sense of the word, but they knew what they were doing. They were setting up naps so that they'd be able to get each other them by basically rigging fights between two napped up clans. They wouldn't fight each other for territory, they'd just fight each other for tanks. Particularly when they implemented the fame system, rather than, how much land you control or how much gold income you get when it's, you get X amount of points for doing an action in a Clan Wars battle. Well, fucking there you go. Nobody's going to fight for land anymore. They're just going to fight for tanks. And actually, I've heard stories, and I'm not going to name any names here because, first of all, I don't know who it was that did it, and second of all, I don't want to get people in trouble with wargaming, but I have heard of people basically grinding out the reward tanks for about 5 or 6 different people in their clan, just single-handedly, because the players whose accounts they were playing just couldn't be asked to log in, and they were still getting them, while people who may have been actively playing Clan Wars that whole time didn't get any at all, because they didn't really get how the arcane and, quite frankly, easily biased towards the bigger clans, that system, they didn't understand it. I mean, I don't even understand it, and granted, I don't pay much attention to Clan War stuff, but it was just a stupid system. It didn't really work very well. So it's better than that, at least, but it still has a really bad impact on the game. Wargaming have said they're listening to input to try and make future campaigns better. So here's my advice to Wargaming. First of all, scrap all the RNG shit. Take away, hitting multiple tanks at once with arty, or setting people on fire, or, all the bullshit objectives like that, and especially the one where you have to rely on your shitty teammates to do anything. The arty missions, when you have to track someone and their tank gets destroyed before they hit their repair kit, that doesn't fucking happen. Maybe if you're platooned up with somebody and your platoon mates are focusing the same target as you, if you're lucky. But if you try and do that in pub match, and for the T-28 concept you have to do that twice in one match, it's not going to happen. People don't shoot tanks you've tracked. They just don't. They'll shoot everything else but, and then they'll yell at you for not shooting whatever it was they wanted to be shot. That kind of stuff, get rid of it. Make it purely based on actual things that the player can directly influence with no RNG involved. Missions to do X amount of damage. Missions to get X amount of kills, I guess. I'm not a fan of kill missions because I think I've stated my stance on kills before. You should be aiming for damage, not kills, and basically whoever gets the kill is pot luck. And so people like me who will do a lot of damage don't often get very many kills. But, you can make kill-based missions. They are things that you can influence. And the worst effect that'll have is people holding shots, which they do anyway, because they want their fucking top guns. Stuff like that, or do X amount of spotting damage, but don't make it absolutely require some astronomically unlikely thing to happen. Like somebody catching fire X amount of times in a game, or what. It's ridiculous. Get rid of that. And then, of course, be stricter punishing people if they're just fucking ruining games to get their missions done. The problem is, though, that's really hard to police. You wouldn't really be able to do it. I think probably one of the things Wargaming needs to do is, instead of relying on an automated system for dealing with bots and AFKs and other shitters, they need to actually devote more support staff towards people doing shit things in game, because the number of times I've seen people drown themselves because they didn't like the matchmaking, or because they thought the enemy team had too many unicums, or people deliberately hiding in a corner at the end of a match that they could have won, like the Lorraine in this match, because they wanted to get a medal or get a mission completed, or just not die, not pay repair bills. That kind of stuff should be reportable. And that kind of stuff should get people banned. But at the moment, it's just, there's nothing really you can do about it other than complain. Anyway, I think I've droned on long enough. If you do happen to see this guy in-game, don't expect him to be any use at all, and feel free to remind him he is a shitter for throwing his teammates under the bus. Don't do this yourself. Even if it's tempting, just don't, especially not for an additional bonus. It's like 25,000 credits. Come on, that's one game in any tank, not even a premium. I think I'll cut this one off here. I wish you the best luck in the field. Hopefully you won't run into people like this guy. Hopefully you won't have too much trouble completing your missions. And I'll see you on the next one.